Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So we got a little bit of breaking news here at 5:33 Central Time on this Monday, May the 6th. Ian Rappaport reporting former Saints offensive lineman Andrus Peat signing with the Raiders. He notes some added OL help post-draft. That is significant. That is significant news because, listen, we've talked about Peat plenty here. And I'm not arguing that Andrus Peat at any point in his career has been a great starting offensive lineman. I know he made a Pro Bowl or two, but in large part it's because nobody wants to play in the Pro Bowl, and so alternates get in there often now. But Peat is a guy that, when he was available, was at least a starting caliber offensive lineman, and he was versatile. Maybe the biggest benefit, he's a left guard, but when you had injuries, and you often did with Teron Armstead, and then obviously having not really replaced Teron Armstead at left tackle, thinking you did with Trevor Penning, but that didn't work out. Peat was a backup left tackle for you as well. So he had value in his versatility. Now, Peat was a free agent, and obviously he's not going to be back in New Orleans, but that was one of the spots, one of the options sort of that we had talked about as a possibility of returning to the Saints. So as you kind of factor through the offensive line, and this is the day where there was more news about Ryan Ramczyk, I'm going to get to here in just a quick second, but you figure you've got Eric McCoy at center, and you've got Cesar Ruiz at right guard. Now, you know that Taliesin Fuanga is going to play one of the tackle spots. And, Fuanga's, by the way, if you missed this last Thursday, Taliesin Fuanga's offensive line coach at Oregon State, Jim Michalczyk, joined us. And this guy who coached Fuanga, it was his position coach for 4 years, coached him his entire time there at Oregon State. And I asked Michalczyk if Fuanga could play left tackle or if he was specifically a right tackle. Again, this is college offensive line coach. This was his answer.
He played right for us because we had a guy that was there first playing left, and who's an NFL prospect also, probably an inside guy. But I thought about switching him, but you don't mess with something that's working pretty good. If our left tackle would have been hurt, I would have flipped him over in a second, and he would have gone. So I think he can do both. Again, it's where do they want to kind of, to move him around too much when he first gets in that league, is probably not the best thing to do. I'm sure they have a plan already in place and a direction that they want to go.
Okay. So, again, that's Jim Michalczyk saying he can play left tackle. Thought about playing him at left tackle, but the only reason he didn't is because we had a guy entrenched there. I don't know what the Saints are going to do, but what Mickey Loomis said was he's a tackle, not a guard. So left or right, that's where Fuanga's gonna fit in. I think the best case scenario for New Orleans this year is Trevor Penning hits the big learning curve and is your starting left tackle, and Fuanga is your starting right tackle. That means all you got to do is fill left guard, and you got plenty of options there. You've got guys that have been around the organization. Maybe it's Nick Saldiveri, who you drafted last year. Maybe it's a veteran like Oli Udoh, who you signed, who's been a versatile guy on both sides of the line during his career with Minnesota. You got some options. But Fuanga potentially as a left or right tackle is an option there, because one of the things we talked about was Andrus Peat potentially being a guy that you re-sign who could be a starting left guard for you if you need, can play left tackle. Remember, James Hurst is retired, and now with Andrus Peat signing with the Raiders, that's two options that are off the board. There was more news today on the offensive line with Ryan Ramczyk, which is why all of this was sort of top of mind, because we're wondering what Ramczyk's status is. Now, I want to remind you of this. About a month ago, maybe a little more than that, Nick Underhill does a great job over at New Orleans Football, was a guest on Off the Bench with Hester and T-Bob, and they were talking about Ramczyk, and this is what Nick said on OTB a little more than a month ago.
if he were to spend the season, just say trying to rehab it, and then next year he retires as post June 1st retirement, like that would be extremely beneficial. They'd be able to spread it out. Then it'd kind of be hitting the cap 2 years from now. And given how they're set up right now and they're structured, that would make a lot of sense. If he were to retire right now, it's a huge hit. And then if he waits until after June 1st, it's like $1 million difference. And it just kind of feels like maybe there's an understanding that this probably isn't going to settle in a way that I just don't see him playing again. I just, like, if I had to bet today, you're asking me to go to draft and place a bet on it. Like, I'm betting on him not playing.
Okay. So Nick Underhill was spelling out sort of the restructure of the contract and basically saying he doesn't think that Ramczyk ever plays again. Now, today, Nick added some detail to the contract situation with Ryan Ramczyk, where when they restructured him, his base went to the veteran minimum. The rest of his $6.5 million was converted, so he can earn it back in the 2025 escalator. But what Nick added today, like, here are the escalators: $1 million if he's all pro, $6 million in playing time incentives, $1 million if he plays 90% of the snaps and they win a playoff game, $1 million if he makes the Pro Bowl. So for a max of $9 million. Basically, it's all playing 90%, winning team, things that if you're injured aren't realistic. The other thing Nick added, though, in that tweet is still not expecting anything from him this season, but that's how he can earn the money back if he surprises everyone and plays this year. So Nick's kind of doubling down there, saying like he doesn't. And look, Nick is as connected as anybody in that who covers the organization. So I don't think that's just PFA. That's just plucked from the air. Like Nick is giving you a very educated guess there. So the fact that Ramczyk looks like he's not going to play this year would be a big surprise if he did. And now Peat isn't back. You have to start looking at other options on that offensive line. And yes, I mean, you're hoping you can make Penning a starter. Best case, left tackle. Worst case, starting left guard. Fuanga can be your starting left tackle or right tackle, whichever way it goes. We mentioned Oliudo, Nick Saldiveri. You got bodies there. And you've had some undrafted free agents trying to win a spot. I don't know if that means they're plug-and-play starters year one. And maybe you could still go into free agency, veteran free agency, and find other players. We've seen that in the past. Look, last year they signed Trey Turner. And Turner had an unfortunate injury in fall camp that cost him his year. But there are going to be guys, and we've mentioned in the past David Bakhtiari, who was an all-pro franchise left tackle in Green Bay before injuries sort of cut him down the last 2 seasons. Well, is he at this point in his career healthy enough to be a guy that could come back and be a starter potentially for you at left tackle for 1 year while you figure it out? Maybe not. But as the Saints stand right now, you're living on a hope and a dream on Trevor Penning, but Fuaga looks like he's going to be one of your starters at either tackle position, and they'll figure it out from there. But again, but Ramczyk, very much it looks like the way that his deal's structured, very unlikely he plays in 24. The target looks like it really would be 25 if ever again. And then, obviously, Andrus Peat has signed with the Raiders, so he will not be back in New Orleans. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.